Okay, in this video tutorial, this is going to be the first in a part of a series, and in this series we're going to focus on what I call clay modeling ahead. And so the process, just to kind of give you a flash forward to overall what we're going to do, is I have my orthographic reference images brought into Maya, and today I'm going to show how to just really basically box model out the head to kind of give us an approximation that we can send over to Zbrush, Mudbox, or Nomad, whichever program that you like to do your organic sculpting. We'll do most of our sculpting over there, and then we'll bring it back into Maya, and we'll bring a high res mesh that might not have good topology because we're not really concerned with it while we're sculpting, and we're going to bring that back into Maya where we'll retopologize it using the Quadtrol tool. And so something I really like about this process is I feel like worrying about topology while you're modeling can just be a real kind of thorn in the side to creativity. And so this is actually a really intuitive process, I feel like, and it requires just kind of going back and forth once between programs, between Maya and your sculpting program. But the flip side of that, or the advantage of that, is I think this workflow enables kind of the most creative sculpting process that's available. So with all that said, let's get started. So today we're going to just box model using our reference to give ourselves an approximation. Since we're bringing this into a sculpting program like Mudbox or Zbrush, we're really not worried too much about like perfect topology or anything like that, because it's going to go up to like 1,000,000 polygons in one of those programs, right? We're just trying to get the basic shape of the head worked out so that you're not working entirely from scratch in the sculpting program. And the second is we're just on the topic of topology, we're just going to try to add like a few more subdivisions around the eyes, nose, mouth, and ears, just to make it so that when it's time to sculpt in those programs, that you're not working at a disadvantage there either. Okay, so this is just going to be a real basic sculpt that we're going to do that we'll send into one of those programs. So to get started, I'm just going to, I'm under the modeling standard view, and I click on this polygon cube, and we're just going to start with a cube. And so I'm going to press R to scale it up, and I'm going to use my side view as reference first, and just kind of bring it close to the center of the head, and scale it back up again. And so something we're going to be doing a lot is we're going to be pressing 3 on our model. And so you'll notice that a cube, when you press 1, looks like a cube. And then when you press 3, it rounds out. And so one thing that's sometimes really hard to fight against when you're box modeling is end up with these characters with like these square heads and things like that. And so one way to fight that is start with super low subdivisions, and then we're starting with a round shape, because we're going to just take this, we're going to get these positioned correctly, then we'll smooth it and rinse and repeat essentially, and we're going to end up with a nice round base mesh. So let's look at this from the side view. So the overall plan is these vertices that are right here on our model is going to go to the top corner of the head, back corner of the head, all 4 corners, and then this is going to eventually become the jawline right there. So from the side view, you'll notice that if I drag like that, it'll grab both sides. Something else that I'm going to go ahead and do before we get started sculpting this out is I'm just going to go up to where it says symmetry. You can find it up here, or you can find it under the modeling toolkit, and I'm going to turn symmetry on. And also something I'm going to do before we get started is I'm just going to scale up this head so that from the side view, we're kind of already starting from a place where this is pretty close, right? So I'm just in the side view, haven't pulled any vertices or anything like that. This is still just, if I press 1, this is still a cube, right? But we're in 3 preview mode. And so I'm getting that lined up from the side view. You can also remember, if you want to see your reference view better, you can always switch to wireframe, or by pressing 4, or you can go to shading and then go to X-ray right there, and that way we can kind of see through it a little bit. And so now I have this kind of position from the side view. Let's look at it from the front view. I'll do the same thing where I'll go shading, X-ray. And so it's looking really darn close from the side view. And I'm going to just go over to the front view real quick. And remember, symmetry is turned on. And so now we're going to start pushing some vertices around. And so if I drag like that, let me just switch to the 2-view mode. So yeah, from now on, I'm going to make this change to how I'm viewing this. Whereas kind of working in the 4-view mode, I'm going to click on this and go to 2-view. And so from here, you can see I can see my front view and I can see my perspective view. And that's going to be really helpful because I want to see both which vertices I'm grabbing and not get too locked in to the orthographic reference images, and also keep an eye on what my model actually looks like in 3 dimensions. So you can see intentionally I'm grabbing the front, the left and the right, and the front and the back right there. And I'm just going to press W. Remember, symmetry is turned on. Oh, I'm sorry, I misspoke a little bit. So I'm grabbing right there, and I'm just going to push those in just to kind of get that worked out a little bit. Next, I'm looking at the back of the cranium, and so this is kind of be where the neck connects. And so I'm just grabbing those 2 vertices in the back of the head, and I'm just going to push them inwards a little bit so that it lines up with that neck a little bit better. And now I'm going to click on these 2 vertices, and I'm going to bring them down because remember this edge right there, that's going to become that edge right there, that's going to become the jawline. So I'm going to click on these vertices and push them down a little bit. And then I need to push them in order to kind of get this to become the jawline. And you can see that changes some other things around my model, and that's okay. You know, I'm not too worried about that because I can just go back and fix that. So I'm getting my jawline worked out. You can see, it's hard to see if I switch off to X-ray, you can see my head's now a little bit too narrow now. So since I got that jawline looking about right. And so I'm going to click on these vertices and kind of re-widen the head up there a little bit and push them up. Oops. And let's just check the back of the head. Yeah, that's looking good. So just to kind of summarize, we took the 1 cube, we pressed 3 to round it out, and then just kind of one by one, right? I kind of got it working from the side view, and so again, I'm in the 2 view. I'm going to go to panels, orthographic, and then side to switch to the side view. And remember, I can turn X-ray on. And I got it kind of mostly working there. I might just make a couple small changes right there. So we're just kind of getting these lined up in the corners. All right, so we have it's lined up in the side view. Then I'll go panels, orthographic, and then front. Get it mostly working in the front view. Kind of want that jaw a little more narrow. There we go. And we're just kind of getting the model to that point. Okay, and so at this point, I've kind of done everything that I can do with the subdivision level where it is. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to smooth it. So I'm going to just click on smooth. That's going to double the subdivisions. And so what we're going to do now is take another look at it from the side view. So I'll go panels, orthographic, side, and that's already looking pretty close. So again, this is going to continue to be my jawline right there, and this is going to go right through the eyes. That's kind of my plan, is just to have that just go right through the eyes, and I want this to go in front of the ear. So I'm just pushing that edge to the ear. So again, I'm just right-clicking edge mode, double-clicking right there, pressing W and kind of moving that so it's going through the eyes. Same thing right here, double-clicking, moving that so that's in front, a little bit in front of the ear. Okay, so that's looking good. So let's switch over. So panels, orthographic, I'm going to go back to the front view. And that's close. I just want that a little bit more like that. And let's get out of edge mode. Let's go to vertex mode. And so I'm just going to round out the head a little bit. So I'm clicking on this vertice. And notice that I'm always keeping my perspective view kind of available, because at the end of the day, we're sculpting right now, right? We're just kind of building out our armature, our base skeleton that we're working off of. And so, yeah, since we kind of did a nice job setting up the cube in smooth mode, there really wasn't too many changes that we needed to make here. I just wanted to make sure that this kind of went through, this ended up going through the eyes, and that we're continuing to kind of keep this model, like nice and round, for the head. And so from here, we're kind of good to go again. Remember, again, we're just trying to build an armature so that when we sculpt in Zbrush or Mudbox or Nomad, we're kind of starting from a good place. So I'm going to smooth again. So we're getting more subdivisions now. And so now something I might start doing is we're still continuing the same basic process where we're keeping our eye on the perspective view, checking the front, and then going over to the side view right there and just kind of double checking our work, right? Something I'm going to do though is I'm going to go up to Mesh Tools, and I'm going to break off this menu by clicking on this double dotted line right above where my cursor is right now so that I can keep this menu up. And we're going to use the Slide Edge tool some and then the Insert Edge Loop tool. So I'm just going to click on that double dotted line, break this down right here. And so the Slide Edge tool, for anybody who's unfamiliar, is something you can kind of do in edge mode. And it's a way where you can change the topology a little, or sorry, the topology without changing the model. So if I wanted to slide this a little bit more in front of the ear, for instance, I just click on the edge, then I go on to click on the Slide Edge tool, and you can see this little drag with middle mouse button message shows up. So I just need to click on my mouse wheel and then drag left and right, and you can see it moves the edge loop, but it changes the model as little as possible, essentially. So it's just a nice way to kind of start to move your topology around if you don't want it to really affect the shape of your model necessarily. Something else that we're going to start doing now is, let's say I want this to line up with the front of the head a little bit more. Before, I was selecting one vertice when I was in a cube mode. Then I switched to two vertices to kind of grab that area. And now that we're on our third subdivision, I'm going to kind of grab 3 from the side view. And in that case, that's 5 vertices. And the reason I'm doing that is it's going to keep this model not nice and round when I'm kind of pushing these vertices around. And so as you move up subdivision levels, looking from the side view when you're grabbing vertices, the more vertices that you grab at a time, the rounder your model is going to the more roundness your model is going to maintain, essentially. And if I just start like grabbing 1 vertice or 2 vertices, a lot of the time something I've observed is the model starts to kind of become a little more squarish and segmented over time. So I'm just grabbing 3 vertices, I'm just going around the edges and getting this model looking okay, from each level here. And so one big change I'm making is, so this is the chin, right? So under here I need to kind of bring this up to start to become more of the jawline. These vertices, I really want that more like that. So yeah, I've kind of gotten a little bit off there. So notice again, I'm grabbing 3 vertices at a time from the side view, because my goal is I'm trying to kind of keep this model as round as possible. And let me just start to kind of bring that down a little bit. Okay, so that's starting to look a bit better now. And okay, so next thing I want to do is I'm going to do the Slide Edge tool. There's kind of a little bit of debate for me which one of these to do. I'm going to make this go through the mouth, and so I'm going to use the Slide Edge tool. So I'm just going to click on Slide Edge, make sure that edge is selected, middle mouse click, and then drag to the right a little bit, and that just drags it down. So that's kind of bisecting the mouth now. And okay, so yeah, this is looking pretty good. And then before I do anything else, I just kind of make sure that when I look at this in the perspective view, this is still looking like a round shape, for the most part. And we got a nice base model. Okay, so again, I want to kind of keep moving relatively quickly here. And this is not the box modeling process. That's what I'm showing right now. What I would recommend if I was just box modeling and not taking this over to ZBrush and Mudbox. But again, this is specifically for that purpose. So I'm really not worried too much about topology being perfect or any of that. So next up, I'm just going to smooth it again. So smooth, and now we're starting to get into a really high subdivision level. And that's okay, because again, the basic shape when I check this from the side and then from the front is in pretty decent shape. I can see right here this is starting to kind of get a little bit off on the jawline. I probably should, let me just, if you find that, you maybe just undo, and let's just kind of select these vertices and then just widen out just a little bit again. Okay. All right. So now, sorry. All right. So now we're good. And got a nice round model. Okay. So from here, I'm going to, I could start adding edge loops specifically here. I think there's kind of some debate on which way I could do this. Why don't we, instead of smoothing this again, I'm gonna add edge loops. And so I'm gonna add an edge loop to kind of define the nose right here. So that's how I'll start it. So I'm just gonna go insert edge loop, and let me press 1 so that we're in 1 mode. And let me try that again. So insert edge loop. And so when I insert edge loops, I'm gonna click on this options box and make sure that insert with edge flow is turned on. That's going to be really important because without that, it's going to turn our model into like square shapes, and edge flow kind of keeps a roundness going when we add new edge loops. So I'm just going to add an edge loop right around here, and notice that I'm keeping my eye on my perspective view, and I'm going to let go. And you see that keeps some nice roundness there, but that gives us a subdivision for inside the nose. So what we're eventually going to do is, if we go to face mode, let me see if I can get that going again, is I'm going to add another edge loop, but you can see kind of the width of the nose is being shown right there. So next what we're going to do is we're going to add an edge loop going through here to kind of define the bottom of that nose. And we're going to add a couple more edge loops around so that we can kind of extrude the eyes out. So in the spirit of this tutorial, I'm going to kind of keep moving relatively quickly. So insert edge loop, and I'm going to click right here. I'm going to add an edge loop that's going to go define the bottom of the nose. So I'm just clicking, then letting go. You see edge flow keeps that nice and round for us. And so now if I were to extrude right there, I would, have some section of a nose that I could kind of work with. And so next off, remember that this edge loop we have going through the eyes, maybe I push that up just a little bit. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to, let me just look at this real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so you can see if I were to extrude these faces and turn them into eyes, it would be pretty drastic, the height of the eyes. The width is pretty good, but the height is way too much. And so I'm just going to add one edge loop. Let's look at this view. I'm going to have one edge loop up there, one edge loop right there. And that's going to kind of give us a little bit more specificity to work with when we're creating the eyes. So insert edge loop tool. I'm just going to click this. This is just anywhere kind of above the eye. This is going to essentially become the eyebrow. I'm going to click right there, let go, and then right here below, I'm going to click right there and let go. And so what that's done is it's allowed me, so now if I click those 4 faces, I can now extrude and start to define the eyes a little bit. So, so I'm selecting those 4 faces, I'm going to extrude and bring that in a little bit. And the first thing I'm going to do is, so notice I'm not in 3 mode anymore. I'm now now that I'm at this point, I'm kind of in 1 mode. We have enough subdivisions where we don't really need 3 mode as much anymore, and I'd rather just kind of be accurate. So I'm in 1 mode, and I'm going to line this up in the front view, then I'm going to line it up in the side view. So I'm going to right click, vertex, and it's probably a little bit hard to decipher in video land right here, but I'm basically taking these 4 vertices and I'm just trying to line them up around the eye. And so keep an eye, I'll keep both of these open so you can see the perspective and the side view. So I'm clicking on that vertex right there, and I'm just lining it up on the side view, and I'm just going to go clockwise around the model, just lining up the eyes. And again, what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to give myself a nice starting point when I try to organically sculpt my character. I'll just kind of drag that in a little bit. All right, so that's lining up, you know, half decent across the front view. So now I'm going to do it on the side view. So panels, orthographic, side. I need to be a little bit careful because I want this to still look okay three-dimensionally. And so something that I can do now is, if you want to grab a bunch of vertices at the same time, something that can make your life a little bit easier sometimes is, you know, make your selections over in the perspective view, but you can also switch to face view, or sorry, face selection. Press W, and that's a way just of grabbing a whole bunch of vertices at the same time and just kind of like pushing it back a little bit. So I'm just kind of pushing this back, and it's going to make my model look a little bit funky in the short term, but sometimes doing that can just really help in the long-term process. And so again, I'm kind of making the selection in the perspective view, and that way I can tell exactly which vertex I'm clicking. And I'm trying not to move this up and down from the side. I'm just trying to move it left and right to get this, because we've already kind of made our decisions on the left and right front when we lined it up in the front view. So you can see I have some overlapping geometry right there. And so one thing I want to do is I want to just find that vertice that's on the outside of the eye and push that back a little bit to kind of start to move it out of the way. And we have quite a defined cheekbone happening right now, but you know, that, again, this is stuff that I mainly plan on working out in Mudbox or Zbrush. So, oops, I broke my own rule. So from here, I'm just moving that left and right, and again, I'm looking at these again in the perspective view as well as the side view. So that's looking half decent for now, I think. Probably not perfect, but it's, you know, again, we're just trying to approximate at this point. You know, and something I can do is I can press 3. That gives me like a preview of like essentially what this is going to look like. And so next up, since we're working on the eyes, something that I recommend that everybody do when you're sculpting organically in the other program is have your head, but also import the eyes and bring them in at the same time as separate objects. And that'll, in the long run, that's going to make your sculpting process go a lot better. And so just as kind of like a little side mission, let's just go ahead and bring our eyes, or create our eyes and place them into position and place them onto this model while we're kind of in eyes mode. So I have my base model right here. I'm just going to go over to poly modeling, click on the sphere option. I'll press R to scale it up just a little bit. And so the first thing that you want to do is you want to press E to rotate it, and then hold down J as in joystick, and then just rotate it to 90 degrees. And I'm going to line this up in the side view right here, and I'm just clicking in the middle and moving it into position. And so we got that working. So now I'm just going to switch this over to the front view. And same idea, just kind of moving this into position. That's probably a little too big, so I'll scale that in. And panels, orthographic, side, and push it forward. There we go. So just having those eyes kind of in there approximately, this is going to help you a lot in your process. So when you, and I'll go ahead and name this, so I'm just going to call this, this is their left eye, so left eye. And I'll go ahead and name this, so this is the base head. So when we bring this into Mudbox or Zbrush or Nomad, it's good just to kind of import all of these at the same time. And so I'm going to click on this eye, and I'm going to mirror it. So I'm just going to go to Mesh. Let's see here, is it... you can find the button right here for mirror. I'm just trying to remember where it is up here. There we go. So mesh and then mirror. And it should just kind of go over. But if it doesn't work, you need to just change some of these settings. And so when you bring this into your other program, I'm just going to call this eyes plural. I kind of forgot that when I mirror, it's going to come in as one object. So you're going to have that object and you're going to have that object when you bring it in. And having them both defined is going to make this so much easier when it comes time to get these this edge loop in place on your model. So, and we could go ahead and start thinking about that now a little bit. So again, I can go into vertex mode. Oops. One thing you might want to do is these eyes, we might start selecting them by mistake right now, right? So you can see I'm kind of struggling with that a little bit. So why don't we just go ahead, go to general, and I'm just going to create a display layer for them so that we can kind of lock them and we don't need to worry about moving them by mistake. So I'm just going to select my eyes. Again, I went under the general workspace, channel layer box editor. I'm going to go under display, layers, and then create a layer from selected. I'm going to double click that and call that eyes. And save. Oops, that already exists. And here, if I just press that twice to R, that turns it into a reference layer and it locks it. So now I can't select the eyes by mistake anymore. So that's great. So now, if I want to get really specific with things, I can start to drag and select those vertices, for instance. And I need to deselect by holding Control and deselecting those. Press 5 again. I can start to really line this up with the eyes a little bit better, right? But again, I think this is something that'll be easier to do, in my opinion, once we kind of get into our organic sculpting programs. So I'm just going to kind of leave this for now. And if you want to fiddle with that, you can. But just remember, when we get into Zbrush or Mudbox or Nomad, we can really, we can worry about it then. So next up, let's go ahead and think about the nose a little bit. So with the nose, we're going to create an extrusion to kind of get this going. And so let me just look at this. I'm going to switch to my 2 view. All right, so we have that going. And okay, so I'm going to right click and go to face. And so if I select, in my case, it's these 6 faces. You can see it starts at the bottom of the nose and then kind of goes to the top of the nose right there. I think an argument could be made that I could, yeah, okay, so I'll select those. And let's switch back to the modeling standard workspace, and I'm going to extrude these. So I'm, again, modeling toolkit, click on extrude, and then you can just push it straight out. You can also press W and just pull it out that way. Oops, you can see one thing to look out for is I just selected some faces in the back by mistake, and so I do not want that to happen, right? So I'm going to press edit undo, and I'm going to make sure I press edit undo a bunch of times so that I don't get any double extrusion. So I kind of pressed Control Z more times than I thought I needed to, just to make sure that double extrusion went away. And I have those faces selected. I'm going to go around my model, make sure I don't have any selected by mistake, and I can also press 4 and then go back to 5 to double check. And then I'll extrude again, blue arrow out. And so we have what's going to eventually become the nose right here. And so let's start to kind of go ahead and shape this. So I have this from the side view. This might be a good time to press 3 on your model so you can kind of see, what's going to eventually happen here. I'm gonna stay on 1 just for a beat here. So I'm going to select on, oops, what's going on? I'm going to select on these vertices and press W, and oh yeah, let's do this from the front view. Sorry about that. Okay, so panels, orthographic, front, and let's just go ahead and I'm going to select these edges right here and then just kind of push them in a little bit. And sometimes when you see me moving edges, that's just a way, so I'm not having to select 6 vertices. I can just, or how many is that? A whole bunch of vertices. It's just a way of kind of shorthanding it a little bit. I'm going to select these edges, kind of bring that down. Again, not perfect topology, but we are going to do that later when we do the quad draw tool. So I'm not, overly worried about it. So I'm just kind of scaling those in, bringing these up a little bit so that when I model this in the side view, it's kind of working to my advantage a little bit more. So let's go back to the side view. So panels, orthographic, side. I'm going to push that in. And I'm going to do this a little bit gradually. And the reason for that is I can tell I need to make some changes up here. So with that vertex and that vertex, I can tell some pretty major changes need to happen. So I'm just going to drag and select right there, push that in, drag and select that. again, kind of from the side view, pushing that in. There we go. And so that gives me a much better starting point. And so now I can bring that in. What is the vertex I'm missing here? So this is an example of bad topology kind of getting in my way a little bit. Yeah, and so ideally, I would definitely, this topology that I have in this little section is not the best. And so that's kind of biting me right now. And again, you know, I'm trying not to worry too much about getting everything like 100% perfect, because I just want to kind of give myself a little bit of a starting place so that when I model this in in ZBrush, I'm in a good place right there. So again, you know, that's not 100% online, but I'm gonna fix that when it's time to sculpt, right? I'm just trying to get the basic geometry in here right now. So next up, let's just do this process one more time for the mouth area. I think I need some more subdivisions around the mouth before I start to really do that. So I'm going to do what I did with the eyes, where I'm going to add an edge loop there, add an edge loop there. We're going to extrude around the mouth and just kind of gives ourselves a little bit of definition in that area. So insert edge loop. Remember, edge flow is turned on. And I'm just going to click right here to kind of create above the mouth. Click right there to get below the mouth. You can see it didn't quite, it's getting a little bit janky down there, but that's okay. And so I'm going to right click, go to vertices. I'm clicking on these, oops, right click vertices, selecting on those. I'm just kind of pushing it in a little bit. This edge loop going right here is going to be the center of the mouth. So I'm going to right click, go to vertex. And notice how I'm selecting a fair amount of vertices at the same time right there. And my character has a little bit of a smile going on. Let's go to panels, orthographic, and front. And I'm just going to press W, get that up, and select these vertices and flatten that out so that this this edge is lining up with that mouth a little bit better. So I'm just going to do it one at a time. So I'm in the center, just getting that exactly where I want it. Notice again that I'm using the perspective view to kind of find my vertices when I'm making my selections so that I'm not moving some vertices in the back of their head by mistake. So right there, and then finally right here, I'm just going to move that up a little. There we go. And with these edges, I'm going to use the slide edge tool to just get this a little bit closer to where I want that to be. So right there, I'm just going to do the slide edge tool, middle mouse click, drag that up a little bit. And it looks like somewhere along the line, my jaw got a little bit off base. Let me just press 3. Okay, so yeah, when I smooth it, that'll look better right there. Okay, and so we're on to some of the last steps. So I'm going to right click, go to face mode, select those four faces on each side, so 8 total. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, symmetry mode's turned on. I'm going to extrude and just kind of bring that in a little bit. And I'm not really too obsessed with getting this perfect, right? Again, this is just, I'm trying to get this approximated. Oops. And you can see at the bottom, I selected some faces by mistake back there. So if you catch that, just press Edit Undo. So let me try that again. So I'm just going to press Edit Undo a bunch of times. Let's try that again. So select those faces. Whenever you're extruding, just press 4. I'm not doing it well today, but just get in the habit of doing that. Where you press 4 to make sure you're not selecting any faces on the back. And so from here, I'll extrude. I'm just pulling that in a little bit. Again, just trying to give myself some subdivision so that when it's time to model in the other programs, I'm not just kind of working with these areas of really low subdivisions when we're trying to add these details. Because when you're sculpting in ZBrush or Mudbox, if you're trying to sculpt detail in an area that doesn't have much detail, it's going to make your life really difficult. And so that's all I'm trying to do, is just kind of get those subdivisions in there. So we're almost done at this point. So from here, I'm just going to switch back and create my neck. So I'm going to right click, go to face, And let's switch to the side view, panels orthographic side. And so it looks like I might kind of use these for creating my neck. And I know it doesn't line up perfectly. I think this will work a little bit better. So same idea as before, we're gonna extrude. So I'm gonna press 4, make sure I didn't select anything bad, 5 to go back. I'm gonna extrude, and I can use that blue arrow. I'm gonna just use the blue arrow to pull it out a little bit, but then I'm gonna switch to W for the move tool and use that as kind of my main kind of move tool. And I'm gonna bring it kind of halfway here. And so from here, I'm gonna go to the scale tool, and I'm just gonna work to flatten that out from that perspective a little bit. And now I'm just gonna go to the front view. I can tell there's some work I need to do on the front view because their neck is super wide right now. So I'm just gonna go to the front, and this is gonna definitely be helpful to have both the perspective and the front view kind of available to view. So I'm just gonna press W, bring that in a little bit, F to focus in. And so I'm just kind of thinning out that neck on the sides. Okay, so that's looking a little bit better. And from here, so I'm gonna do that same process again where I extrude. So face, they should still kind of remain selected back there. And so I'm just gonna also press 1 just to double check. Great, that's fine. And I'll extrude again. I'll just go straight to W and just push it straight down. And from here, I can just kind of scale that in a little bit. I'm trying to kind of round this out, and so scaling it in can sometimes be a good way to do that. You can see that my neck is a little bit square, so there's a little bit of work I need to do just to kind of work that out. So first thing I'm going to do is that these faces right here are pretty massive compared to those, so I need to work to even that out a little bit. So vertice, push that in a little bit, vertice, push that in a little bit. I just need to kind of work to round this character out some. Let's go back to the side view, and it might be beneficial to kind of stay on 3 mode because we are going to smooth this again before we do our final export out into our 3D sculpting program. Oops. So I'm just kind of grabbing vertices, moving them into place. Oops. Notice I'm grabbing a lot at the same time. There we go. And definitely not perfect, but it's a starting place, right? And so from here, we just have, there's probably more I could do on the neck, but I don't want to bore you all to death. And so we're just going to kind of keep moving. So right here on the ear, I'm just going to right click, go to face, 1, 2, 3. Let's do 4. Yeah, that's probably fine. Okay, and so again, I'm just trying to add geometry so that when we sculpt, we have something there. So extrude, I'm going to make sure I'm in 1 mode for this. I'm going to scale it in a little bit. And I'm going to press R, scale that up. W, kind of push that over this way. Definitely not my best topology work right now, but again, not too obsessed with that right now. And so from here, I'm just going to extrude that again just to kind of give us even more to work with when it's time to model the ear. So I'm going to extrude again, pull it out, and that's all I'm going to worry about right now. And so from here, we have our model. And I'm just going to do one last thing. We can see what it looks like when it's smooth right there. I'll preview that. So I'm going to smooth this one more time. So I'm just in this mode right here. I'm going to smooth. And again, that's under the modeling toolkit, the smooth button that's right there. And so this is going to give us like a nice little base mesh that we can work off of when it's time to sculpt in our organic sculpting program. If you get to this point and you want to kind of make some fine-tune things or make some changes, you can go over here to the sculpting tools, and we can do things like this is the relax tool, where if we want to kind of bring some of the geometry, if some of the geometry gets a little too tight in some areas, that's a really good tool. We have the smooth tool, and then we have the grab tool. So these are good tools that you can use to just kind of make some broad adjustments to your sculpt. And if you decide to work with these tools, if you hold down B, you can change the size of it. You can also double click on the tool and it'll give you the pop-up menu right here. So if I decide this neck is too square, you know, I can press B, drag it in a little bit, use the grab tool, and I can just kind of push these around a little bit. All right, so this is something that's nice you can do to kind of fine tune some aspects of your model. So that's one thing you can do. We have the relax tool, so I'm going to click on that. And let's find an area where subdivisions are a little clamped together. I mean, it's honestly, it's looking fine, but maybe over here. I can just click on that, and it's subtle, but you can see it's kind of relaxing those. Oh, here's a good area. So it's relaxing those, and it's kind of smoothing the model, but it's also just evening out the topology. And so that relax tool that's right there could be really helpful. And you can also use this. You might not even want to send to a program like Mudbox or Zbrush. And so I could kind of do all my sculpting right here. You know, so this is like the standard sculpt tool. Again, hold B and drag in. And so I could, let's see here. You might want to use a tablet, right? I'm drawing with my mouse right now, but you can kind of sculpt in, you know, details right here, and we can smooth this geometry a bunch of times in Maya, right? And then use the quad draw and just never leave Maya at all, using this exact same process. So, you know, that's all an option that's available and under your fingertips. So yeah, that's something you can choose to explore if you want to. And I'm going to kind of jump out of sculpting just by double clicking on my selection tool. And at this point, we are pretty much ready to send to our organic sculpting program.